Dan, thanks for coming to my office. Last
Yeah.
time I think I was in your office when we recorded, and that was episode 20, which was probably about, what, 2 years? No, 2 years ago?
Yeah, maybe about 2 years, yeah.
About 2 years ago. Maybe even longer. It was a while ago,
It was pre-COVID.
pre-COVID, which, pre-COVID, post-vaccine, that's how everybody keeps time these days. So I've been doing these interviews in my office recently. I think the one before this will be Lily Ray and her coworker. And we were sitting that way. Now I'm getting a new orientation, which is much better. Any event, so we went through your history in SEO and back then. So I definitely will hyperlink or include that video of who you are and what you do and so forth.
Yep.
So definitely look at that video. It's a pretty good story in terms of where you've come from being a kind of musician. I think you said you call yourself a broke musician or something like that.
Yeah.
And then becoming a very, 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 very wealthy, an SEO that makes some money and able to support, what you need to support. So definitely take a look at that. And then we talked also about core updates. And if you don't, we're pretty much recording this on the day after the June 2021 core update actually shown some, changes. It was a slow rollout, but we saw that. In any event, if we could just start by just quickly telling people in that camera who you are, how they can learn more about you, and stuff like that.
Sure. Dan Shure, glad to be here. Thanks for having me, Barry. I was a musician, but for the last 12 years or so, I've been doing SEO consulting, and I also have a podcast called Experts on the Wire. Barry's been on that. It's a great episode. And I generally now consult for bigger companies for the most part, or companies that drive a lot of traffic and generally try to drive revenue from search directly. So companies like GBH in Boston and their PBS programming, Harvard Business Review, Zappos has been a client a little while back. I generally just don't do local SEO, but pretty much everything else is kind of fair game.
Interesting. So you do adult SEO?
No.
Okay, let's go through the whole list of what you don't know. But yeah, local SEO is its own behemoth. It's Google My Business, it's citations,
Yeah.
It's a lot of things like that. But core SEO is somewhat different than.
Yeah, it's mechanically very different. Yes.
Right. And a lot of the stuff you work on, are they like quick hits or they're more long-term engagements?
They're both. So I have everything from what I call a one-day jumpstart, which is just a one-day like sample audit and content plan, to like full service kind of consulting that can go ongoing in some cases.
Interesting. Okay, so I know last time we spoke about core updates, also about like podcast SEO and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Which is really great. You should definitely watch it. I don't know if you remember what you said about the core updates back then.
I remember that I was saying that they're not penalties.
Right.
Yeah.
Has any of your views changed in core updates in the past 2 years at all?
No, not really, no.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think that it's important that people don't call them penalties in their mind, because that affects how you then go and react to them, or the actions that you take dealing with them. So I prefer to think of all the SEO I do nowadays very proactive. And in fact, there was a client I had in early 2020, just before COVID. I think it was the January core update.
Right.
And they saw a little bit of a drop, e-commerce client. We did an emergency phone call because the owner was like all worried. And I said, don't panic, let's dive in. And one thing I see that a lot of people don't do with core updates is segment by specific keywords, keyword types, pages, or pages types. A lot of people just share core update like overall traffic numbers, which is not really what core updates are doing for the most part. So when I dove into these e-commerce clients' traffic, just like with every other core update, Google had sort of just sliced away the keywords that weren't driving quality traffic for them, or that were not relevant to the content that had been ranking. And I said, don't worry, let's just keep going proactively. And if you now zoom out to that traffic chart, the core update is this tiny little blip in early 2020, and their traffic has grown like 50 times beyond that tiny little core update blip.
That's great.
Yeah, which seemed like earth-shattering at the time.
Right.
But
it's always scary. One thing you said was that you looked at the keyword side. Was it keyword specific, or was it like keyword specific, but also this subdivision of the website?
So what I've seen with most core updates when I analyze them is a lot of it's intent-based, or misalignment of keywords to the wrong type of content, right? So like maybe Google had like a blog post ranking for more of a transactional intent or something like that. So generally it's mostly keyword and intent focused when I dive in and take a look. And I'm sure there's other cases of other issues. I mean, just overall site quality, content quality, stuff like that, but or technical issues, crawling issues. But generally, when I dive in, I see a lot of Google figuring out, okay, this page is not relevant for half of those queries, but it is still relevant for these other half. So the core update, it's not like a Penguin penalty or like any other old penalty where the entire site just tanks, right? It's like some go up, some go down. If you lose more than you gain, that's the other thing on core updates. If you look at any core update, there's always keywords and pages that win. But it's just the sites that lose, there's more keywords that lose.
But some core updates can have a 50, 60, 70% traffic drop for that site.
Sure.
So it is a lot focused on the quality of the content, and Google sometimes will be like, this site is just not up to par.
Yeah.
And sometimes I see where a site is like at that threshold of just not making that threshold of quality.
Yeah.
Where the whole site can be impacted by an update.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't know if it's just like specific, maybe for some sites it might be just specific keywords. And you've seen that with like the people who complain about 2% drops or 10% drops. But the ones complaining about the 50, 60, 70% drops, it's like you just went over that threshold.
So here's the thing with that. When you look at most sites, the traffic spread from pages that contribute to traffic falls into an 80-20 principle, right? A couple pages are driving all the traffic, and I see this every website you look at, there's going to be a couple high drivers of traffic. If those 5 pages hypothetically just tank, it looks like the entire site, you've lost 70% of traffic. But when you dive in and segment it, it's like, oh, we just lost traffic on our top trafficked pages, and the rest are kind of just chugging along steadily. So,
right, and it's funny when this core update, the June 2021 core update happened. It looks like Danny Sullivan from Google had an interview with somebody from Inc., an author from Inc., whose main premise was, don't worry about the core updates. If you get hit, just don't panic. Everything will be fine. It's just Google trying to do better.
Yeah.
And to somebody who gets hit by a core update, telling them not to panic probably is smart advice, but it's not. It's not helpful. It's like telling somebody who's having an anxiety attack or depression, just snap out of it. It's not like, it's not helpful at the point in time. And I found that pretty interesting. And of course, it's a good article. It goes through, steps back on like, this is what Google's trying to do. This is what you need to focus on. It pretty much covers Google's core update advice.
Yeah.
But telling people not to panic when they get hit and they see a 50, 60, 70% drop in their traffic.
Well, it's tricky though, because there's not a one quick fix action item.
Right.
So, and it depends how we're defining panic, right? Panic could just be my internal emotional state, like, oh my God, I'm freaking out. That type of panic, sure, like I can see somebody panicking over that kind of drop. But then the way to fix a core update is to be calm and measured and prioritize, because it's not like a Penguin fix, right? We're like, oh my God, Penguin penalty, let's just, disavow and like remove our backlinks, and then we'll see a spike upward.
Right.
Yeah.
That's for sure. I mean, it's much harder to fix Penguin mostly. Panda was a little more complicated. Panda was similar to, on some levels, to these core updates, where it was a much longer term strategy of improving your content and improving, your architecture. And core updates are a lot about quality content, improving your architecture, making your site, the EAT, YMYL category types of stuff, where you have to make sure your site has expertise and authoritative and trustworthiness and all that fun core update stuff. But you're right. I mean, if you're trying to fix those core update issues by panicking, it's not going to help you.
Right. Well, and Google said too, you could fix things, but not see an improvement until 2 further sets of core updates after that too.
Yeah.
So I mean, you have to get a little used to being a little patient.
Yeah, I do wonder what we're going to see, because this is a 2-part update.
Yeah.
I'm sure by the time this video comes out, we'll know, because this is going to come out after the second part is released.
Yeah.
But it seemed like this June one was interesting because it was a slower rollout. But July, I wonder what's going to happen there. And Google did say sites that either saw a boost or a decline might see the whole thing reversed. So it's very interesting to see how these things work.
Yep.
And I guess we'll find out.
Yep.